The North Carolina Sheriff's Association statewide disaster assistance network coordinated a response to Hurricane Helene in the fall of 2024. The association facilitated the cooperation of sheriffs and their personnel from across North Carolina through the Sheriffs Helping Sheriffs Network. Hurricane Helene reached western North Carolina on September 27, 2024, bringing unprecedented rainfall, wind, and flooding. With the ground already saturated from heavy rains in the region, the storm's brutality caused catastrophic destruction and loss of life, wreaking havoc on homes, businesses, infrastructure, and the landscape. As the storm struck, the North Carolina Sheriff's Association activated the statewide Disaster Assistance Network, allowing sheriffs across North Carolina to come together and assist counties in need. Little did anyone know at the time just how much was going to be needed.
Well, back in 2011, 2012, Sheriff Richard Webster in Chatham County was our president. There was a storm coming this way, headed to southeastern North Carolina, and Jason Bennett, our Director of Business Development, and I were at lunch at a little restaurant out near Rex Hospital in Raleigh, talking about and watching the news about what the storm was expected to do and when it was going to hit North Carolina. And we realized it was going to be a big storm, big hurricane, and that sheriffs in that part of the state were going to need help from other sheriffs throughout the state. And so we started sketching, Jason and I started sketching out on a napkin there in the restaurant some ideas on how the association could help those sheriffs that needed help receive that help from sheriffs in other parts of the state. We spent a little bit of time that afternoon sketching that out. We called Sheriff Webster, who, as I said, was the president at that time, and asked him to approve us launching what has now become the statewide Disaster Assistance Network.
I think our Sheriff's Association SDAN program is the best way for sheriffs to get help, because not only are they able to communicate with one person, which is Eddie or myself, to ask for help, but the help that they receive are trained sheriff's deputies that can step right into the role of their own sheriff's deputies. And they know exactly what they're getting, and they know exactly the chain of command. And a sheriff helping a sheriff is very different than a police chief helping a sheriff or a state law enforcement agency helping a sheriff. Sheriffing is unique, and the best person to help a sheriff is another sheriff or their deputies.
You know, we talk that, hey, we're here for you, and we say we love you and anything you need, but when the rubber actually hits the road, when you actually need help, and their sheriffs show up and their personnel, they are there. Talk is cheap, but they are showing us, like we were able to show them, we're here, where do you need us? Just let us help you. And that is just such an amazing thing to be able to count on. And then to have the association coordinating all that is really just so critical, so that we're not just sending resources and nobody knows where they're at, but the importance of the association coordinating all of our efforts is just really a special time and a thing that we can do for each other.
SDAN for Hurricane Helene was activated on Thursday, and then the storm was hitting Thursday night and all day Friday. And on Friday, we got a few calls, but not very many. But by Saturday, we were inundated with calls, so much so that we brought all the staff that work on the statewide Disaster Assistance Network to the office and worked around the clock Saturday, Sunday, and then for the next 2 weeks, I believe, we were working, answering calls from sheriffs and sending people for responses. So it was around the clock for about 2 weeks.
We're doing two things at one time. We're collecting information of what's available and what you can contribute. And then we're collecting what are the needs and where do they need to go. And the association collects both of those, and then we try to make that. So there's sometimes you may need 15 officers. We may not have an agency that can give 15, but we may have 2 or 3 agencies that will total 15. And so we're putting that together, adding that together, and putting it to where it needs. And so really what they're doing is making a connection point between who wants to donate to who is asking for it, and then the association sort of steps out of it a little bit and lets those two sheriffs work together on where it actually needs to go and what time they need to be there, and all of those kind of details get worked out between the two.
The North Carolina Sheriff's Association for many years have helped sheriff's offices across the state. Anytime there's a situation or a catastrophe situation or a need situation where sheriffs are getting kind of overrun with a situation or they need help, all they got to do is call their association, the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, and ask for help. Tell specifically what you need. Sheriffs helping sheriffs. We'll roll out the manpower, the equipment, and whatever else you need. But we've done it several times. And like I said, I've been in law enforcement as sheriff for 27 years. And I can say it's multiple times that we've gone all the way from the coast now to the mountains, helping one another, people in need.
Well, it's real easy to activate to help other sheriffs. And so that was an easy call. That was a call from Eddie telling us what was going on, what we thought was going to happen, and to stand that up to make sure we have help for people who may need it is not a hard thing to do. The more important thing to do is keep it running. And the staff at the Sheriff's Association had a difficult job of waiting for those requests to come in and assimilating things that other sheriffs would be willing to donate.
Some time ago, the sheriff's office started the Sheriffs Helping Sheriffs, and I just felt like that that is my responsibility. State of North Carolina, if a sheriff calls for help, we should go.
We provided 2 squads of deputies of 7. I went up on the first week myself, so I was able to see for myself what damages were done and what were the living conditions of not only the deputies or the sheriff's office was damaged, but also how we were going to be surviving as well. So what prompted me, it's just biblical. Love God. It was a godly thing to do. When you feel it in your heart, and listen to the Sheriff's Association, how you guys say, hey, wait on the response. Sometimes it's hard to wait because God says go. Love God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. But the biggest thing is the second commandment was say, hey, love your neighbor. So my neighbors were 5 hours away, and God says, you gotta help them.
So I think to start with, I think there has to be an understanding that that is my home. I was born and raised there. So I have a different perspective of what I've seen, prior to, and then seeing the devastation. So for me, the devastation was a little bit different because I also remembered the way it was before. So the devastation is something that I think we all could agree we've never seen before. But also the pictures, the videos, it really doesn't do it any justice opposed to being there and seeing it firsthand. So when I go and look at the storm and the devastation, it was personal.
Most of the time as a coastal sheriff, I'm the one receiving help from other sheriffs. Because obviously in North Carolina, that our greatest natural disaster generally is a hurricane, and that generally affects those of us on the coast more so than those midway of the state or further inland. And back in 2018, when we had Hurricane Florence, we had a significant impact all the way up and down the coast. And at one point, I think I had over 40 deputies from other sheriff's offices that were in my county assisting me in doing what I needed to do to keep our folks safe and be responsive to the public and answer calls and make sure everything got done. I've been a recipient of that assistance significantly and on more than one occasion. And so when it comes my time to try to help out another sheriff, I'm always willing to try to give back what I've already received.
We had made early preparations probably a week prior as things started looking like we were going to get some extensive flooding. So we did some planning and some coordination with our emergency management director, other county services. And so I feel like we were amply prepared at that time. But I'll tell you, when the storm actually hit, there's no planning that can prepare you for the devastation that Haywood County saw and felt. I would attribute that our loss of life was as small as it was because of that prior planning. But then again, any loss of life is tragic. I would attribute that mostly to the partnerships that we maintained with surrounding counties, other agencies within the county, and even with the state, and particularly with the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, who was there to lend us assistance from counties further east who have more experience with hurricanes than we do in the mountains. And so their assistance was a welcomed relief to the operations that we had going at the time.
I remember the night of the storm, whenever it started, we were out, my staff was, and we were trying to keep the roads clear. We were trying to get some trees out of the road. And we finally had to stop that because it was getting too dangerous. And then next came the rain. That day went on, it was obvious. I was scared what we were going to do for gas. The manpower for my county, I mean, I couldn't keep my deputies out 24/7. I mean, I knew I was going to have to get some help.
My mom's side of the family are from Burnsville. So being able to go help my cousins, their families, it had a personal effect. It wasn't just my job, it was the personal effect of being able to go see them and ensure they were all okay. It was a godsend.
So the process of working with SNAM was very smooth and seamless. You know, 99% of the time I was talking directly with Eddie or Lauren, and they were always there. They always answered the phone when I know they were busy themselves, but if I was able to get a phone call out, and a lot of times it was on different phone numbers. They never knew what phone number I may be calling from because, you know, cell phones was not working very well or at all. So, but they were always very responsive and very quick to get us the help we needed.
When you go to help, you do not dictate what you do. You're going to help that sheriff, and you do what they need you to do. And it may not be the best shift that you want to work, because we work the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. I've been on day shift for the past 9 years. I love to work a day shift and not night shift, but we went out there and we worked that night shift, and we stood our post. And the first night he had us working the traffic and everything else. For the other 5 or 6 nights, we were doing, we secured the makeshift morgue, we secured the fuel depots and the school stuff, and you do whatever. It's not about the glory and everything else. You do whatever they need you to do, and that's what we did. So if you're gonna send help to a county, don't try to dictate any of that stuff. Go and ask that sheriff what he needs and do whatever, he or she, and do whatever they need.
We got requested to take our aviation unit up to Transylvania first to do some recon and supply drops. We were there for 2 days in Transylvania County with our helicopter, and then we switched over to Rutherford County, and we were in the Lake Lure and Chimney Rock. And we went in at first, did some recon with them with a helicopter, and then I was met with about 10 of my deputies came up, and we were there for 2 weeks total.
Citizens of Guilford County, oh, they was awesome. They poured out, people coming from different areas of Guilford County bringing the donations, and we had people come from out of state, Philadelphia, Ohio, to Guilford County to bring clothing, water, I mean, food, pet supplies, pet food. I mean, it was people from different places. So it felt good to know that people would and can and have came together to help support in time of need.
So I think, you know, we of course sent deputies up there to assist and try to help find community members and help answer calls. I think one of the biggest things that we were able to do was we have a mobile field kitchen. So we were able to go there and feed not only the deputies but also their families and some community members hot meals, 3 meals a day. And I know when we were suffering, when we had the devastation, to be able to know that, you know, we could eat. We had a sheriff's office from another state come and offer that to us. So I think for us, Probably the biggest help that we were able to send was to go up there and to provide good quality meals with our mobile kitchen.
So we ended up sending side-by-sides, four-wheelers, and obviously personnel. So we sent four people. Actually, I sent my administration up there, myself included, my chief deputy and my two captains. And the reason that I ended up sending the people that I sent was because of the assistance that we received during Hurricane Florence in 2018. It was very important to my administration who went through Florence to be able to help out the western side of the state because they were the ones that came and helped us when we needed it.
The day after the hurricane, our executive director, Eddie Cobble, sent out a notice for help. We had a Bearcat, which is a big four-wheel drive machine that you can go about anywhere, that Sheriff Hilliard was in dire need of help. We immediately packed, and I sent a team of 4 up to start with. And then the following day, I went up with 2 of my people to bring some of the inmates that Sheriff Hilliard had in his detention center because power, water, everything was gone.
I was intentional on the items that I sent to be specifically for the employees, the deputies, the people who were out working and couldn't get to those lines to receive those much needed supplies. So, you know, I spoke with each sheriff that I sent these items to say, hey, we're going to bring these things to you. I remember not being able to get in those lines. I remember not being able to get supplies. And I do know that the washer and dryer went to one of the sheriffs that I spoke with, had an officer that lost his whole house, lost everything, and he was still out working, you know, to provide services for the community. And I said, please make sure he gets that washer and dryer, because we often give so much of ourselves and that we don't remember ourselves and our needs.
We lost 2 law enforcement agencies or sheriff's office staff during the storm is extremely tragic. And my hearts go out to their family. To everyone who lost life in this is tragic. But the first responders especially, is closer to our heart that they were either traveling to or coming back from serving others. And that is a tragic, tragic way to deal with a loss of life.
I often say that as law enforcement officers, we see things we'll never unsee, hear things we'll never unhear, and that probably will be one of the things that they will carry in their memories for a long time, just to see the devastation and to hear about the devastation of what was happening in those areas.
One of the biggest things that they experienced was the amount of devastation and how much the communications were knocked out, what a disarray the EMS and things were in, because the norm of doing business and having communications was completely gone. Cell phones were not working. The 800 megahertz systems were not implemented in those areas, and it was taking time to get communications back in. The deputies that were there, some of them have lost loved ones. All of them had lost something, whether it was through friends that lost homes, and their homes were in disarray in some of those places. So when we got there, how much need the locals had of need to take care of their homes and their families. And that was one of the things that I felt was really important, because we could come in without that close association to the disaster and help, while those deputies got help in their homes.
As a sheriff, you know, we're supposed to fix everything. We're supposed to help others. So for a period of time, we weren't able to go help others outside of our area. We had to focus on McDowell County. We had to focus on the needs and the responses right there at home. And I'll be honest with you, that was tough for me as the sheriff, because I hated that we couldn't go help other sheriffs, because I knew there were sheriffs around me that needed help, and I really wanted to be with them and help them, but we weren't in a spot early on. But as soon as we were able to get to a spot to where we could go help, and our folks were rested, then we immediately went to some other counties to try to help.
Everybody appreciated what we were doing. It didn't make any difference if we were a Buncombe County deputy or a sheriff's office crew or somebody from another county. Everybody really appreciated what we were doing. And we were there trying to look out for folks, and we would go around and check on people and ask if they needed any food or water or anything, and they were in turn checking on us. They were making sure that we were okay, and they were offering us food and water. And it's kind of like, well, this is crazy. You know, we're supposed to be here checking on you guys, and you know, those people were okay, and they were more concerned about us. And it was really a great experience. A lot of good, but there was a lot of bad that occurred, and that was the reason we were there to begin with. And so it was heart-wrenching and heartwarming at the same time.
I guess that night when we lost communications, the first night where we had the floodwaters, I mean, we knew it was coming. And it was a torrential downpour. It was coming in waves, and I was sitting in the sheriff's office with our county commissioners and our emergency management director, trying to determine, you know, what our next steps were going to be following this. We got up the next morning and realized that Interstate 40 in Haywood County was impassable. Most of it had washed into the Pigeon River. We knew at that point that the damage was extensive, so we're going to need everything from traffic safety to, I mean, any number of things, because we essentially, Interstate 40 comes from Tennessee directly into North Carolina through Haywood County, and when that's gone, we weren't sure how that road was going to get blocked on the Tennessee side.
I got to go to Rutherford County. We got deployed in 3 different places as far as officers went, and that was the last place. And I remember driving to go to Chimney Rock, and it took forever to get there. And then once I got there, it was just like, it's gone. You know, I'm walking down the street, driving down the street, and then I get at the end and walk down the street, and everything to the left-hand side of the road, the floors were gone. The walls were standing. And I noticed when I got out to the very end and the road just stopped. There was no road anymore. And I'm watching bulldozers move the river to where they could get a road to go up to the next, you know, up there. And my guys was watching as they pulled debris, you know, to make sure they didn't see anything or, you know, bodies or anything like that. So it really made an impact on me and just how important it was to help them.
But one thing a sheriff in all of these major disaster areas talked about, when they respond to their disaster, they had roads and they had paved roads. They said the difficulty here is working in these valleys and terrain that didn't have roads, and the roads are muddy and the roads are dirt. And they said that made them really think that although you are prepared for your area of disaster, we're not prepared for somebody else's area for disaster.
Total destruction. After spending many years between Iraq and Afghanistan, seeing destruction war-wise compared to what Mother Nature had done completely blew my mind. Because I grew up in Buncombe County, and I had never seen the destruction like that before.
When we arrived in Haywood County, I sat down with the sheriff, because you don't just want to show up and not know what that sheriff expects. We're coming into his county, and we want to do what he wants us to do, he or she. And I said, Sheriff, do you want us to just be seen? Do you want us to patrol? Do you want us to ride around with just our cruise lights on so the community know that you have law enforcement out there? Or do you want us to work? Or do you want us to work? And he was like, no, I want you to work as if you're in Halifax County. And I said, now you understand, my guys, we rock and roll in Halifax County. And he said, I want you to work as if you're in Halifax County.
I can tell you some of the sheriffs didn't have contact with any of their staff during this. And there was a big fear of how do we take care of the people that's taking care of people. And that was a burden on a lot of sheriffs of just making sure all their staff members were okay. I did see staff members dressed in full uniform that had penny loafer shoes on. And when I asked him about it, it's because it's the only shoes he had, but he was at work. You know, I saw people that didn't go home for 3 or 4 days. And then when they went home, they didn't have a home. And so to not have a home and be somebody that would be in need, but you're still helping other people, that's special kind of people at work.
I remember going up the mountain one time and meeting with an older gentleman. He was out in his yard with his younger granddaughter, and she had 2 little pink boots, and she had them on the wrong feet. And you know, she was just out there doing whatever, and one of my deputies had stopped by there to begin with, and had a conversation with them, and called me up there, and because I wanted to come and talk to some folks, and got out there and talked to them, and just had a good time catching up with them. And you know, they were doing okay. They weren't in an area that was as impacted as some other areas, but everybody up there was impacted in some way. So we took a photograph with that family. I gave his little granddaughter a junior deputy badge and took a picture with her, and you know, I've got that picture in my office.
First time I ever been to Clyde, and there was a gun shop, a gun owner. He was cleaning out all his weapons, and man, I mean, he had some major weapons on. I mean, he had some major rifles, and I started talking to him, and his whole family was helping cleaning out the armory, and we just talked. He never talked about losing anything. He never talked about we got to rebuild. He talked about, thank God I got my whole family here with me. And you know, that's what it's about. And I didn't hear anybody downtown Clyde that were complaining. I didn't hear anyone complaining. I went over to the military store and some military veterans that were cleaning out, and they were all smiles, but all around you was devastation. God is good. It's just some good people up in the mountains.
It is literally the glimmer of hope that you see when you see things like that between the interagency partnerships, being able to work with Sheriff Buchanan and McDowell County when we went to go help them out, and then also the police department, because we worked with Old Fort Police Department while we were there. We were stationed in Old Fort, and the people as well, and the interaction between the law enforcement agencies themselves and then the law enforcement agencies with the citizens that you're helping out was the ray of hope, I think, that everybody looked for after such a devastating storm.
To come and leave your family, because we had sheriffs come and stay with me 2 and 3 days at a time. They came and they stayed at hotels and they left their families just to come and be with me, to help me in their commitment to me, to the county. It's just, there's no way for me to repay them. That was just the true meaning of serving each other or giving of each other. They left their own homes. They didn't have to. But it's different when the sheriff shows up.
The Sheriff's Disaster Assistance Network was critical and such an important piece to Hurricane Helene as far as providing the resources that the sheriffs needed. And I'm glad we reached out to them. I'm glad they reached to us. I'm so thankful for not only the association and their coordinated efforts, but I'm also very appreciative of the sheriffs that were willing to send their personnel, were willing to come themselves and see us and offer that assistance. And I hope and pray that we never experience that again. And I hope that nobody has to go through that again. But if they do, and it's not in McDowell County, I definitely know that I'll be doing everything I can to provide that support to other sheriffs.
Felt like we were doing something for the brotherhood of law enforcement and public safety overall. I went, and as soon as I went in, I saw Sheriff Hagman, and he was handling it very well. And he said, I've got all these things going on here. And I told him, I said, I'm just here to help and to work with your people. I don't want to burden you, so if you need me, call me, but I want to be out with your guys and girls that are the ones that are out here. What a feeling it is to see that those deputies worked under such harsh conditions with the problems that they had in their own homes and their loved ones that had, there was a lot of missing people, and what true heroes they were. And to be there and see that firsthand, it's very humbling.
There were a couple that I had known through the Sheriff's Leadership Institute, run by the Sheriff's Association. And to see them roll up, give a handshake, and here I was dressed, I had muddy boots on, and I felt like I was fighting for my county the entire time. And to have that assistance and have friends and brothers in law enforcement that I had been to school with, I considered brothers, and show up and say, hey man, I'm here, what do you need? It was overwhelming.
We're sort of a family, and it's important that we help each other, because someday I'm going to need it, and I know they would return the favor. So it's just something that I knew that we could do and support them and help them.
I just think the sheriffs of North Carolina are very fortunate enough to have this statewide Sheriffs Helping Sheriffs network. I think it'll be a role model for other state agencies. You know, it's unbelievable to pick up the phone, call, where do we need to go next, who needs what, and then at that time, I just come off being president, was chairman, and know that every request was taken care of in like 2 or 3 days. That's unbelievable. Obviously that carried out, but the fact that they were able to organize it, keep it straight, every sheriff, and then the sheriffs talking to other sheriffs from the eastern part of the state that wanted to come help, that's a lot to keep track of. But it was I cannot think of one hiccup where somebody needed something and they did not get it.
There were no way that my staff could have done all that was going on. So without the additional officers, we couldn't have made it. I mean, they were going out to people's houses, checking on them, taking items to them that they needed. I mean, we couldn't have done it. We're too small of a county. We could not have done it without the help of other sheriffs.
I would say the sheriffs that came and helped us, you'll never know how much you've meant to me personally and to my staff and to the citizens of my county. I mean, again, it is unreal how much help they did and what all they did do. You can't put it into words, but it was just amazing to watch what all the other sheriff's offices across the state did for us. And for my people, even personally, on levels, you know, I had several employees that lost homes, and sheriffs stepped up. They collected money. Some sheriff's offices come back and help my people rebuild. So it's been tremendous. And other sheriffs that maybe didn't send personnel, they sent supplies to us, and it's been amazing.
It was very enlightening to be able to help a fellow sheriff. That's one thing since I've been in office. If a sheriff calls for help, I'm sending them whatever they need. And it was real heartwarming to see that the sheriffs coming together to help other sheriffs, because I was thinking, what if that was me? And I can tell you, when I arrived there and talked to Sheriff Hilliard, I've never seen an expression on the face of anybody like that.
We always talk about calling Eddie Caldwell, right? And we go through this Sheriff Leadership Institute, and they tell you about the powers of the sheriff. I never was a sheriff until 2018 when I ran for office, but prior to that I was a police officer. And so I didn't understand when you say just call the sheriffs, that didn't mean that to me. What you mean call the sheriffs, right? What they gonna do, right? And so for me, the sheriffs are a different breed, right? They're different than law enforcement. When I say law enforcement, different than the police. So when you call a sheriff, it's almost like you're calling your own family, and they put aside their political beliefs or political positions, and they come and support each other, you know, like a family.